Right, tax sub. Kind of hard to believe this took so long to get done. And the next thing I'm looking at, to try to fulfill that, hey, get this, try to get something that'll take a little while to play, but doesn't take much effort in rules so that I can get it on the table. Well, I found something I'm willing to do, which also surprises me how long it hasn't. It actually, unlike Attack Sub, got enough ratings on my request list over at BGG. The game's not yet receiving. Well, this particular game is kind of a funny instance. If I rated games the way BGG suggested, this would probably be about a 9 or a 10. There is almost no circumstance in which I'm unwilling to play this, assuming I have the time. The rules are light, don't take a lot of prep. The game itself is relatively mindless, more on that later. But it's also fun. It's not completely mindless. It gives you enough decisions and it gives you enough story that I get a kick playing it, especially opposed with someone that I'm close to and enjoy being with. It's not something I'd want to play with someone I don't particularly enjoy being with, but I don't want to play games with those people particularly. Usually when I'm playing games with, if I'm playing games with someone and it's kind of a new situation, I'm either kind of stuck at a con and don't want to spend much more time sitting outside smoking and trying to, read whatever I'm reading or whatever. Or, I don't know. I mean, I just can't think of many circumstances. Basically, it's I'm stuck in a situation where I expected to be in a game or be doing something gaming-wise, and this is what came up, and maybe there'll be something else. Anyway, back to this game itself. So, like I said, if I was rating this in BGG, it would get a 9 or a 10. It's a very, very light and easy game. And honestly, all the heavy games that I rate highly and respect and love, I'm a lot less willing to play them, right? This particular design has a cleverness to it that allows it to give a relatively believable story coming out of it, although maybe the Russian subs need a little bit of fudging in their favor. People have argued. I'm not a specialist in submarine warfare in any sense. I barely know anything about it except for what I see in the movies. So, I'm not going to make arguments of, well, the Russian subs really were better than this. The designer had a certain theory, and up to the values on the US subs based on his own greater knowledge than mine. And I buy that. That's what wargaming's all about. The actual components, one of the things I went off on in a very positive light in the introduction was the poker style cards. Yeah, that's no big deal now. Back then, this was a big thing. This was one of the first games to really take advantage of these quality cards available for. Avalon Hill had big print runs compared to the wargaming companies today, but throughout most of the 80s, throughout almost, I think all the 80s, they were putting cardstock cards that you had to fold and tear out. SPI had a similar situation where they put a little bit of a gloss on the card, but otherwise very flimsy, really, and it was kind of like, well, these are amazing that this is what we have, that we have something, but when you compared it to like Risk that had real poker card quality cards, it was it was always somewhat disappointing. People would look at the games and say, they're kind of shoddy, whatever. This was one of the big points to me here is, hey, cards were becoming cheap enough that you could put them in and I don't know how big these runs were. Uh, Avalon Hill put out huge runs for some games. I suspect they put out a fair-sized run for this thing. I picked it up at a novelty shop, I think. Stock cards for the submarines and ships, double-sided. They contain the information, relatively easy to access and understand. Counters are your standard Avalon Hill counters, a bunch of circular ones that, for whatever reason, I haven't transferred because I don't have a good answer to it. Basically, I would need a little baggie for each ship, or I use one baggie with all the ship square counters that I can't put back and put the circles back in there. And so far, that's been the case. The rules themselves, it's a simple game, so they're okay. They're okay. They're a little bit. There feels like there's a little bit of a pain point in them still. Like maybe if Don Greenwood wasn't involved, they would have read a little better. But they're not too bad. They're not too bad. One of the few cases where I don't think he did too much harm to a game. What about the actual play of the game? So the play of the game is you have a handful of cards, and they give you various options. You can play one card per ship, basically, to do something. And the cards you get might be useless, in which case you can discard them, or they direct your behavior as to what you're going to do. And honestly, this is probably the biggest complaint I can make about the game, is that the cards play you. You get a hand of cards, you figure out how to use them. There's probably not too many choices there. It feels like there may be a lot, but most of them are not worth, making the decision on. Every now and then you got a choice between, well, do I ping someone, or do I, fire a weapon? Or should I try to reduce, their chance of hitting me? The vulnerability of the ships in this game generally means firing a weapon first, getting the first shot off is a good move. You might just sink the enemy ship very quickly in that. And in fact, the game has been, this is the one thing the designer points out, is that he reduced the accuracy in terms of ships are a little bit more staying power than they should, given the weapons that are involved. A really good designer's notes, actually, that help explain the decisions made and everything, and I feel a lot more comfortable when I'm playing a game that has designer's notes of that capacity, of that quality. There's not a hell of a lot else to say. I mean, it's a fun little card game. It gives you a story. It's better than B-17 in terms of the amount of decision making you make. A fair amount better. It's definitely something I enjoy just throwing down and playing. Very much in the Down in Flames type feel. I feel like there's less strategy in this than there is in Down in Flames. There's some capacity for bluffing and such not, You might hold off your passive sensor in the hope of getting an automatic increase rather than expending it for a chance of an increase. There's a moderate number of scenarios, no overarching campaign or anything like that, but the scenarios are probably enough for you to get whatever play that you're going to get out of it. It's not some... So here's the thing. When I say, and we get a 9 or a 10, it's because I probably won't ever play it more than a couple times a year. In any circumstance. I mean, back before. Now, it's like, I'll play it once with someone and then it's gone, because I wouldn't try to push and suggest this game to someone else. And I really doubt that there are many people who would look at this game and say, yeah, I want to play that every day. So it's not like Dominion. it's more like most of my other games. Like Dominion has this addictive quality. Magic the Gathering has this addictive quality. This kind of does, but once you're done with 3 or 4 scenarios of it, you're like, okay, that's enough. You know, I don't have enough control. There's not enough variance. It's fixed scenarios and whatnot. It's not going to give me that kind of overarching experience that brings me back again and again and again. There's no random scenario generator. There's no point generator. There's no campaign game. There's nothing to drive these scenarios and make them better than they are. But for what it is, it's fine. And for what it is, it means that, like, with just about anybody that I enjoy hanging out with, I'd be perfectly fine playing this with them a couple of times. I don't know what 9 or 10 means in the BGG. It's like, you know, almost always willing to play. Well, I don't know, you know, not if we just played it. Not if the other person and I have just played it. But if some other person saw it, yeah, because again, there's no effort to this. It's very, very light. And especially since it takes maybe, you know, I don't know, what was it, 30, 40 minutes for me to explain the rules. It should take less than that. But since it takes a little while to explain the rules, you know, there's a high cost for the value in the scenario. About half your time is going to be spent learning the rules, but if you only play one scenario. For my own rating, though, it was sitting at a 5 before, probably because something annoyed me. Maybe the rules weren't clear to me. I thought I could just pick it up and explain the rules to my past wife very easily, and I had to kind of wade through them more than I thought was appropriate for the game. In this case, I walked away, read the rules myself, came back, and then read them to you the way I normally do, and it made the play of the game very easy, very fun. Didn't have to look up much at all. It just feels like that's too much effort in rules for something this light. Something that plays you. Something that plays you. The game does not give you a whole lot of opportunities to make any kind of really important choices. I guess, you know, there's opportunities to be really stupid. You know. But yeah, for what it is, it works perfectly fine, and I'm glad I have it. It's something that I tend to throw at people who are newer to gaming, and that's why it's ages 12 or up. It was designed for exactly that, to attract, you know, people with an interest in the topic, but who weren't really necessarily who weren't war gamers. Get the foot in the door. Start showing them, hey, there's more, there's more. And yeah, I think it does that perfectly fine. I'm a little bit less, like, I don't see as much from people who are like there are people, a few, who seem to think this is a fantastic game, really wonderful and everything. Yeah, you know, again, it's fun, it plays, it does what it's supposed to. In terms of a challenge or anything like that, nah. It's just not there. It's just really a matter of letting the cards come at you and doing what they're more or less demanding you do, with a little bit of tempering by your own decision making. All right, because